Have you ever stopped to think why some people learn insanely fast, while others spend years stuck in the same place, same schools, same teachers, same books, yet completely different results? Why? It's not talent, it's not intelligence, and it's definitely not luck. There's a hidden rule, a rule so powerful that once you see it, you can't unsee it. And the strange part, you were never taught this in school. Not once. Today, you're about to discover the one learning rule that quietly separates the top 1% from everyone else, and once you understand it, your entire way of learning will change forever. Think about this. You studied for hours before a test, and still forgot everything days later, but then, you remember random lyrics from a song you haven't heard in years, or a scene from a movie you watched once. Why does your brain hold on to useless things, but struggle with what actually matters? This isn't a flaw. It's a pattern. Your brain doesn't learn based on effort. It learns based on something far more specific, something schools completely ignore. And once you understand this mechanism, you'll stop wasting time and start learning with precision. Here's the truth nobody tells you. Learning is not about consuming information. It's about creating meaning. Let that sink in. Most people sit in front of books, videos, or lectures, believing that exposure equals learning. It doesn't. You can watch 100 hours of content and still know nothing, because real learning only happens when your brain is forced to interact, question, and reshape what it receives. Passive input creates the illusion of progress. Active engagement creates real transformation, and this is where the gap begins. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you struggled while learning something new? Not mild confusion, real struggle. The kind that makes you pause, think, and even feel frustrated. Most people avoid that feeling. They run from it. But here's the twist. That discomfort is the signal of real learning happening. If it feels easy, you're not growing. You're repeating. The brain only rewires itself when it faces resistance. No resistance, no adaptation. It's that simple. Now imagine this. Two people are learning the same skill. One watches tutorials all day. The other tries, fails, adjusts, and tries again. Who improves faster? The second person. Always. Because learning is not built on perfection. It's built on error correction. Every mistake carries data. Every failure carries feedback. But if you never test yourself, if you never step into uncertainty, you block the very process that makes learning possible. Schools train you to avoid mistakes. Reality rewards those who use them. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Your brain doesn't store information the way you think. It doesn't create clean, organized folders like a computer. Instead, it builds connections, networks, associations. That means the more ways you interact with a piece of information, the stronger it becomes. Reading once? Weak connection. Explaining it? Stronger. Teaching it? Even stronger. Applying it in real life? That's where it becomes permanent. Learning is not about repetition alone, it's about depth of interaction. And yet, most people do the opposite. They reread, highlight, watch again, and feel productive. But this is one of the biggest traps in modern learning. It feels good, but it doesn't work, because recognition is not the same as recall, seeing something and thinking. I know this is not proof that you actually know it. Real knowledge is when you can retrieve it without help, when you can explain it clearly. When you use it under pressure, that's the difference between knowing and thinking you know. Let me give you a simple shift that changes everything. Instead of asking, "Did I understand this?" start asking, "Can I explain this without looking?" That one question exposes the truth instantly. If you can't explain it, you don't know it, and that's not a problem. That's feedback. That's your brain showing you exactly where to focus. The fastest learners in the world don't avoid this moment. They chase it. Because every gap they find is an opportunity to grow faster than everyone else. Now here's the rule. The one rule schools never explain. Learning happens when you struggle to retrieve information, not when you review it. Read that again. The act of pulling information out of your brain, even imperfectly, strengthens it more than seeing it again ever will. This is called active recall, and it's one of the most powerful tools you can use. Yet most people never use it, because it feels harder, slower, less comfortable. But that discomfort is exactly what makes it work. Think about athletes. They don't just watch games. They train, they push their limits, they simulate real conditions. Why should learning be any different? If you want to master something, you have to practice retrieving it, testing yourself, challenging your memory, not once, but repeatedly, because every time you do, you're telling your brain this matters, and your brain listens, it adapts, it prioritizes, it strengthens that pathway. And here's the part most people miss. Timing matters. If you review something right after learning it, it feels easy. But if you wait even a little, it becomes harder. That's where the magic happens. Struggling to remember after a delay forces your brain to work harder. And that effort creates stronger memory traces. This is why spaced repetition works. Not because of repetition itself, but because of the struggle between sessions. Let's connect this to real life. Imagine learning a new language. You can watch lessons all day, or you can try to speak, make mistakes, forget words, pause mid-sentence. Which one feels harder? Speaking. Which one works better? Speaking, every time. Because real learning lives in action, not observation. And this applies to everything. Skills, knowledge, even personal growth. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds simple. And it is. But simple doesn't mean easy, because it requires a shift. A shift from comfort to challenge, from passive to active, from consuming to creating, and most people resist this shift. Not because they can't do it, but because it feels unfamiliar. But once you make this change, everything accelerates. You start learning faster, retaining more, understanding deeper, and suddenly, things that once felt impossible become manageable because you're no longer guessing. You're using a system, a rule, a principle that actually aligns with how your brain works, and that changes the game completely. Here's something even more powerful. When you learn this way, you build confidence, not fake confidence, real confidence, because you're not relying on recognition. You're relying on ability, the ability to recall, to explain, to apply, and that kind of confidence doesn't disappear under pressure. It gets stronger. So why don't schools teach this? Because it's harder to measure. It's harder to standardize. It requires effort from the learner, not just the system. But in the real world, this is what matters. Not how much you've seen, but how much you can actually use. Now imagine where you could be in 6 months if you applied this rule consistently, every day, testing yourself, challenging your memory, embracing the struggle instead of avoiding it. You wouldn't just improve, you'd transform. And the gap between you and everyone else, it would grow faster than you think. Because while others are passively consuming, you're actively building. While others feel busy, you're becoming effective. And in a world full of noise, effectiveness wins every time. So here's your move. Starting today, stop just reviewing. Start retrieving. Close the book. Pause the video. And ask yourself, what do I actually remember? That moment, that effort, that struggle, that's where real learning begins. And once you experience it, you'll never go back.